What's up everybody, hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video I'm super excited to present to you the Lichtlaerm Audio RAGNARÖK. Let's roll the intro clip, listen to a demo track, and then check out the pedal. This pedal over here, I've been waiting for this nearly since a year. I first saw it at the NAMM videos from Lichtlaerm Audio. There they had kind of a mock-up setup where they had this together with their power amp pedal, the PandorA, where they kind of let people play through this and not knowing that they were plugging into this instead of the Prometheus amplifier, and people were absolutely blown away by the sounds which they were getting out of this. I was also absolutely blown away by the sounds which I have heard, so I was eager to get my hands on this. This year at Guitar Summit, I met up with Daniel from Lichtlaerm Audio, where they were presenting some of their newer stuff. Also a Lichtlaerm guitar, really cool stuff, you should go check it out. I forgot to mention it in my previous Guitar Summit video. However, this pedal was kind of one of the highlights at the booth, apart from the Prometheus obviously, which I really loved. And yeah, Daniel was kind enough to allow me to take one of these with me at home to check out and do a review. So I'm very excited and very happy because this seems to be kind of a unicorn thing. Not a lot of people already have their RAGNARÖK pedal. So this is really cool that I have the honor to be one of the first people who actually have one of the production models in order for review. That said, I want to disclaim that while I'm not being paid for the demo, I'm not keeping the pedal for myself, so I'm not getting any kind of compensation from Lichtlaerm Audio. I'm still biased to a certain degree because I really like Lichtlaerm Audio. I like what they do, but however, if there's something about the pedal which I dislike, I will still give you my full and honest opinion on this one. Yeah, but just know that I'm, like mind-wise a little bit biased to the positive side when it comes to Lichtlaerm Audio. So let's talk about what this pedal actually is. It's a preamp pedal, which is tube-based, as you can see. Got two 12 AX7s in there, and we got 4 different knobs, 2 toggle switches, and these 2 foot switches in there. We have the level, which is just the normal master volume. Then we got the tone, which is kind of a sweep between a more mellow sound and a more brighter sound. And then we have the gain, which adds saturation, and the cut, which is very signature to Lichtlaerm Audio, just basically cuts away the low end, allowing for more tight and percussive sound. Over here we got 2 different small toggle switches. One is 2-way, and it changes between a distortion and a preamp mode. So basically you can use this as a distortion pedal into your amplifier, or you can set it up as a preamp pedal, so that way you can go straight into the power amp or the interface. And then down below we have this 3-way toggle switch, which is called the byte. Now in neutral position it has no effect, but if you go up or down, it accentuates either the higher mid frequencies or the lower mid frequencies. I call this more like the bitey setup when it's turned up, and the more throaty setup when it's turned down. Over here we have 2 foot switches. One is the global bypass of the pedal over here, and this over here changes between 2 different channels. Of course the controls are still shared, you gotta live with that. However, really flexible setup. You can get anything between awesome crunch tones to full bore metal out of this. Checking out preamp pedals is always a little bit difficult because you can use them in so many different applications. I'm gonna try to cover as much ground as possible within the time which we have. Let's first talk about the signal chain. The guitar which we're gonna use is my trusty Solar A2.6 LN with the Lundgren Black Heaven pickups. That then goes into the ISP Decimator G string. From there onward, from the ISP Decimator, we're going to the Lichtlaerm Audio King in Yellow. That is, however, disengaged unless I'm telling you otherwise in the demo. From there onward, we're going into the RAGNARÖK, which is currently at my desk over here. Gonna flick the camera short, so we're gonna have this set up most of the time. And then from there onward, we're then going to the different, let's say, power amp options, which are either the Harley Benton Thunder 99, which is a very clean, unexcited frequency-wise Class D power amp. We're gonna check out the Lichtlaerm Audio PandorA, which is quite colored and quite different than the Harley Benton Thunder 99, as you will hear. We will also check how it fares if I go straight into a tube amplifier's effects return. For that, I'm using the EVH 5150. We are also going to check out how this fares as a distortion pedal into the clean channel of the EVH. And then in the end, we're going to check out how this fares when I go straight into the interface. That's a lot of ground to cover, so let's get straight into it. So I now got everything set up. We're going to first start with the Harley Benton 99 setup. Got everything over here at noon, so that means that the byte is in the default position where no byte is applied. We got the level set to a level which works microphone-wise so that we're not clipping anything. Tone, gain, and cut are all set to 0. This is what we get. Of course, this is a very uninspired sounding setup, so we're gonna dial in the tone first to half. Let's leave everything else so that we're kind of exploring what the tone actually does. So you can hear how it definitely shifts. On this particular setup, I like the tone quite high, to be honest. And then let's check out the different byte setups. So that adds a little bit more of that high mid frequency, a little bit cutting through, a little bit more gain. Let's go to that throaty setup. In most settings, I prefer the throaty setup, but I also like the bitey setup quite a lot when we're going into that thrash territory. Let's check out what the gain does. So you got all the gain in this particular channel. We're talking now about the green channel. We still got the red channel to go, but in this green channel, we have a lot of gain on tap already. So let's go for something crunchy. So really cool crunchy tones. You can now go ahead and actually cut a little bit of the low end frequency rumble. Really cool, awesome stuff. Let's dial in something which is more akin to the sounds which I usually use, so something more in the thrash realm over here. Yeah, of course we're gonna crank up the gain substantially. We're gonna also crank up the cut substantially. And let's dial back the tone a little bit. So everything kind of at 3 o'clock. Let's listen to what that sounds like. All right, now let's go ahead and let's engage the Lichtlaerm Audio King in yellow, and let's dial the gain back substantially. So somewhere like that. Yeah, nice sounding, nice sounding. However, there is a little bit of that hollow feeling, which I wouldn't say that I dislike it. Yeah. So let's turn first off the King and Yellow off. I wouldn't say that I dislike it, but it's not exactly my style. I like this super full, super munchy 5150 type of tone where you boost that and then you get that real saturation. That's what the red channel is there for. So we're going to do that. We're going to completely dial back in everything again, except for the tone, because to be very honest, below 5, it just sounds way too muffed up. Now we're talking. Okay. I still think that we need some tone. In this case, I like to go down to the throaty bite setting. And now we have to adjust gain and cut to our liking. So gain maybe somewhere there and cut somewhere there. Nice. This also works especially good for lower tunings. Let's tune this guitar down in a drop setting. When it comes to the drop tunings, I actually would go to the higher bite setting and leave a little bit more of the low end. So really, really awesome sounding alone in this setup. And we're talking here about a power amp, which is around about 100 euros. Together with this over here, sounds really good. It's definitely loud enough for the band. My ears are already ringing over here. This is not a quiet setup. I'm not right at band rehearsal level, but I'm not that far away actually over here. I now got the RAGNARÖK hooked up to the Lichtlaerm Audio PandorA, and this sounds vastly, vastly different. So the settings are very similar to what I had before. This time I'm now on the throaty bite setup. Not sure what I had previous. Yeah, listen for yourself. It actually has a little bit of that chainsaw DNA added into it. I mean, it's not fully there yet. Obviously, we're talking here about the HM2, which is a vastly different beast than this over here. But it kind of has that sizzle, which is like, really aggressive sounding. Sounds really good. But this is where eventually the distortion comes very handy into play, because when I have seen the videos on Daniel setting it up for the NAMM show, he always had the distortion together with the PandorA enabled. So this is going to sound very, very different. So this is a very different sound than, let me go back and forth between the distortion and preamp. Even though there's going to be a very large volume discrepancy, distortion being way louder, you can still hear the tonal characteristics. So there you have it. Very interesting. Now, my personal conclusion on the PandorA and the RAGNARÖK is that I would like to have like an EQ in between those two so that I can tweak a little bit the mids out of the distortion or the mids into the preamp setting. Yeah, but you know, very flexible in that regard that it can handle different power amps well. Let's go over to the next segment where we're going to check out an actual tube amplifier FX return. I have now set everything up so that the RAGNARÖK is going straight into the FX return of my EVH 5150 100 watt Ivory. The presence is set to round about 3:30 o'clock, so, or 3:30 o'clock, somewhere around that ballpark. The EQ and the volume and all of that stuff is kind of completely taken out of the equation because I'm going straight into the FX return. As you can see, the level is very, very low on the pedal because the amplifier is so incredibly loud, and this is still a crushing tone. Of course, not so much gain right now at the moment, but just that you kind of get an idea of what the DNA is. I think in this setup, it's worth going back to the green channel to just see how the, let's say, crunch sound of this amplifier sounds. So we're again in the preamp mode, by the way, of course, because we're going straight into the power amp. And yeah, let's stay with the throaty setup and taking a good cut out of the highs. I'm going to tune this up back to the standard tuning. So also works phenomenal for crunch tones. I must say, I'm very excited. The flexibility which this pedal offers is really great. However, I'm again here for the full gain stuff. So let's check out how that fares in that regard. Let's just go, yeah, with that setting. So it still has this hollow thing which I mentioned earlier. However, in this case, it's not that bad at all because the presence of the EVH, the sound of the power amp design really complements this pedal very well, I must say. Let's just dial back the gain and the cut a little bit so that we have that more woolly sound, and then we're gonna engage the Lichtlaerm Audio King in Yellow. Damn, that sounds awesome. Really, really good sounding. Man, this is a good combination. The Lichtlaerm audio into the RAGNARÖK on the green channel with the EVH sounds spectacular. I'm a big fan. Let me disengage the king and yellow and let's go to the red channel. So I'm just gonna keep the tone where it is. I'm gonna change the bite to the throaty setup. Let's dial back the gain and higher up the cut. Whoa, this is a tone which I can easily live with. Let's check out the other bite setting. Wow, awesome sounding. I could use a little bit more gain, a little bit more cut, and then try the throaty setup. Awesome. Okay, let's dial back the gain. Let's give a little bit more bass. That bite again, and the king and yellow is now reigning supreme and is turned on. Fuck me, that's awesome. Man, I really like the combination of the RAGNARÖK and the Lichtlaerm Audio King Yellow. That is exactly my jam over here. Wow, that sounds awesome. Sweet. Awesome sounding. This is, I think, my favorite combination so far. Having the Lichtlaerm audio as a boost into the RAGNARÖK and then into the EVH. This is really good. I could easily live with this tone forever. And this is somewhat reminiscent of how I remember the Prometheus. The Prometheus being even a little bit more visceral, a little bit more gnarlier in that regard. Damn, this sounds good. The RAGNARÖK is now set up into the clean the clean channel of the EVH 5150. I have it set up to the distortion mode instead of the preamp mode. As you can see, the controls bite is set up to the higher setting. Gain, tone, cut, level, you can see all of that stuff. From an EQ perspective, I have now set up the mids and the highs a little bit lower. The presence is completely turned off. And yeah, volume is somewhere around between, I would say 3 and 4 on the amplifier. Yeah, let's listen to what it sounds like. I really like that sound. I could use a little bit less of the tone and then boost up the gain a little bit, allow a little bit more of that low end to shine through. This sounds really wicked. Let's go to the green channel. Let's go straight ahead and boost with the King in Yellow again. I'm totally blown away, especially with the combination always with the King in Yellow. This is such a good sounding setup. All right, next segment, checking out the RAGNARÖK straight into the interface. Got everything set up so that we can check out the RAGNARÖK together with impulse responses into my interface over here. Just to give you a brief insight into what I got set up over here, fairly simple. So we have NADIR opened up, and I'm using the Carnivore impulse responses from the other John Brown's most recent demo on the Carnivore speakers. You can get them through his Patreon link. I highly suggest that you check them out. He's an awesome dude, and he makes killer videos, and this impulse responses together with this pedal sound really, really good. Okay, we are set up over here on the green channel currently. Tone is set to the center because anything else is not really usable in my opinion. Again, we're going to go for more of a crunch sound first before we then dive into metal territory. Let me just set up how I liked the settings before the most. That sounds really good, actually. I really like it. It's a little bit on the sizzly side. I think this is something when you go into the DAW and then into impulse responses, this pedal is a little bit sizzly, tends to have that, but you can dial that in with a little bit of an EQ. Let's go for that metal, thrash metal sound, you know, like that old schooly thrash metal type tone. Sounds cool, but there's something missing, and I do believe I know what it is. Let's engage again the King in Yellow and dial back the gain a little bit and the cut so that we get that natural thickness out of the amplifier, but still that, you know, tightness out of the pedal. Yeah, there's something about the King in Yellow together with the RAGNARÖK where this is such a good combination. They're kind of exactly dialed in and they complement each other so well. Let's turn it back off because we are in the end not demoing the King in Yellow, although this video is a great proposal for getting yourself one of those, but it's actually about the RAGNARÖK. So now we are in the red channel. Let's go to the throaty setup because that's what I like the most. Let's substantially cut the bass, gain back a little bit, and tone a little bit there. For whatever reason, I like it a little bit more with the other bite setup. So where I usually gravitate towards the throaty setup, I like it in this particular scenario more when it's set up there. Yeah, let's listen again. I like it a lot. Again, let's engage the King and Yellow together with the RAGNARÖK into the interface. This might be the first scenario where I actually like it more without the King and Yellow. So this is with the King and Yellow. Let's wrap up this video about this amazing pedal, and that is, yeah, obviously the conclusion. I really, really dig the tones which you can get out of this one. I think it's a fantastic addition if you are somebody who likes to collect different tones and you want to kind of get the Prometheus Lichtlaerm audio sound, you know, for a budget, then this is absolutely a valid choice for this. Really sounds incredibly thick, but still defined. You got a lot of controls which are quite powerful. If you want to add something to this, then I highly, highly, highly recommend getting the King and Yellow. It really complements this very well, and eventually using this together with an EQ between the preamp pedal and the power amp in order to get all the tonal shaping possibilities which you could ever ask for. I can wholeheartedly recommend this. I'm going to put a link down below where you can actually purchase this beautiful, beautiful thing over here. So there we got it. I want to thank again Lichtlaerm Audio for loaning this unit. This is going to go straight to a buddy of mine who's also going to do some reviews, Get. I'm going to also put a link to his channel down below. So you're going to have some links to the other John Brown's carnivore video, to Get Harry's channel, and to Lichtlaerm Audio, so that you can get yourself one of these. Awesome. Really, really a fan of Lichtlaerm Audio and all of what they're doing. I can wholeheartedly recommend them. They're super nice guys. And with that all out of the way, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you got something out of this. If you liked it so far, then please do all of that algorithm enhancing stuff. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Let's have a conversation in the comment sections. What do you like about this pedal? Do you thought it sounded good? Do you thought it didn't sound good? Let me know your opinions down below. And we're going to see each other hopefully in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.